Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Movie Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing something different. We're covering the best and worst of 2024. And we're going to do three films, top three films and bottom three films from both of our sides. And we're going to start off with two films that were on both of our top three films this year, starting with Monkey Man.
I mean, it's no wonder it was on both of our top lists because we have both talked about this movie endlessly. I think it was the movie that kind of made us go, hey, do you think maybe we should start a podcast? I just think it is Dev Patel at his finest. My letterbox review says, Dev Patel, you gorgeous, gorgeous Gujarati lad. I would do anything for you. And I'm not lying. Everything about this movie, from the story to the plot to the characters to the music and the setting and the lighting and the fact that it was such a passion project of Dev's, it just pulled through and it showed through, and it shows how good of a filmmaker he is as well as an actor. I mean, he's kind of proved how good of an actor he is in his previous projects, but I think this just proves how passionate and dedicated he is to the craft. And I'm in India right now. This movie was not released here. It will not be released here. And he said he's disappointed but okay with that because there were talks of releasing this movie censored here. And I think that's exactly the point of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever I've talked about this film to anyone, and I've talked to so many people about it, I'm like, oh, this, you can see all of the effort Dev Patel puts on screen. This film might have flaws, but oh my God, does it completely sweep you away in the passion Dev Patel has for this film? I keep telling everyone of like the effort he put in to make this film work, how like he broke his hand and went on set the next day without telling anyone, because without him, the film just cannot move forward. And it is just the griminess of his city, the character he has in every single small pocket of his world.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a true ode to what Indian culture is about. Like, it's critical of Indian society and the Indian government, but I think it's a true ode to Indian culture because it has so many aspects of it that often go overlooked, such as the inclusion of the trans community, or as we call it here, the hijras. The late Zakir Hussain, amazing Zakir Hussain, on the tablas as like this jugalbandi with fighting and the music. And
yeah, you're right. It's the best and worst of India as well, but also like an ode to so much of what makes Bollywood so fun. Even though this is not a Bollywood film, it has the action you love, it has the music you love, but also trying to use all of that to further the political and the commentary of the film as well.
exactly like you said, I was going to say it's like an ode to Mumbai as well, like the griminess you were talking about, and Bollywood like exists in Mumbai as well. So I think anyone who likes Mumbai, aka me, will be like, hey, I know what you mean. A lot of that film was me going in the cinema going, hey, I know what you mean. Oh, he's fighting again. So I think it was just great.
Yeah, definitely worth it. The second one that was on both of our lists was Queen of My Dreams by Fawzia Mirza. Firstly, for me, this was so personal that I was just attacked with emotions from everything from the plot to how the story was told, the dynamics between the families. Everything just felt so personally. It was a film that you truly feel represented by. Being in Karachi right now, the film being set in Karachi, it's just constantly rewinding in my head. And I think that was one of the reasons I included it, because I liked this film. I talked to you about, like, I did like this film, but I was like, it might not be my favorite film of the year. But based on how many times I've genuinely just rewound that film in my head, I'm like, no, this is a film that's probably going to stick with me much longer than I thought. And for that reason, I think it should be up there 100%.
I mean, I completely agree. I think I've spoken about this film in like at least 3 to 4 different kinds of media. I've written about it for a magazine. I've put it up on Instagram so many times. I'm talking about it here now, and I will shamelessly plug this film to anyone and everyone I can. It's available to watch on BFI Player for everyone who wants to. Please go and watch it.
Please go and watch it.
It meant so much to me. I've seen it like 2 times in the cinemas now. I've spoken to the director. I've cried every time I've watched it. It just means so much for words. Like, I always can't seem to find, but then when I start talking about it, I can't stop talking about it. And all I will say is the song Mere Sapno Ki Rani now has become like this calming mantra for me. Like, every time I start feeling myself panic, I start singing it. So it's amazing. Yeah. For all the reasons you outlined and more.
On a trip right now, I just told my mom the ending joke. And me and my mom laughed. It was that same moment. Okay, and now we're going to move on to The Wild Robot, which was on my list for one of the best films this year. Listen, I love animation, and I think this was the best animated film this year. I haven't watched all of them. I might have like missed out on something, but oh my god, this is DreamWorks firing on all cylinders. This is a film about motherhood. It's a film about humanity. It's a film about so much. It's a film about, like, again, raising a child. And the way it does it, its animation style is utterly gorgeous. You can again go back and listen to our episode on this to get more in-depth understanding of why I adore this film so much. It made me cry so much, and I just think it's really a film that fully delves into what it's talking about and just covers it in such an incredible way that, again, it makes you feel like a child in the best possible sense. And I think that's why it's just on my top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think the third one was that was on my top 3 was the other way around. It's this Spanish rom-com Ingmar Bergman, but in my eyes, In the Mood for Love-esque film. I went thinking, oh, okay, this might be a kind of a mid-level film, but it turned out to be so good. I was pleasantly and amazingly surprised. And I just think it's so funny and so cleverly made that everyone should watch it. It instantly lifts up your mood. It kind of has these like melancholic bits, but I mean, what movie, doesn't have those? Or what movie is completely funny? I mean, I don't think a movie is great if it's completely one genre.
Yeah, you need those moments to like ground the funnier bits better.
Exactly. And I think the fact that it's Spanish makes it even funnier. I'm not entirely sure what city it's set in. I'm inclined to say Madrid, but I mean, the fact that it's Spanish makes it like even more grounded in the fact that it's so funny and so laid back, but also has like a certain depth to it, which I'm not like an expert on Spanish culture or something, but it's the general view of how, Spain exists. Like on the surface, all funny and light, but there are deeper depths that lie to it. So I just think it's this great, funnily made, cleverly made movie that everyone should watch for a pick-me-up or like a pleasant like, movies such as this are quite good.
Nice. Now we're going to move on to the worst bets. We're going to do 3 films from both of our sides, which we did not like at all, which like made our bottom tiers, and why. I'm going to start off with Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. If you want a film that shows you how Hollywood takes the goodwill it can even recreate with a franchise, because I liked Ghostbusters Afterlife and completely squander it, you do not need to look further than Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This film was like 70% setup for a 30% payoff that was so underwhelming that it just made me frustrated that I even decided to watch it. It has none of what made Afterlife genuinely fun. And I hate when a film queerbaits me. Stop doing that. And everything this film does, it feels so generic in the worst possible way. It has nothing that it's actually doing with these characters. It feels like it had the idea of a plot and just made a movie with it without doing any of the legwork to flesh it out. It's just like, we need to make another Ghostbusters movie because the last one made money.
Hollywood needs to stop and take their wins with their remakes.
They won't.
Yeah, the first one on my list is Kinds of Kindness, and this will piss off a lot of people because loads of people love Yorgos Lanthimos. And don't get me wrong, I love both things, but I think he really missed the mark with Kinds of Kindness, because leave aside the fact that the plot was insane, that's like a part of storytelling or whatever. I just don't think it was a well-made film in the sense that it felt haphazardly put together and it was like a last-minute fast project, which kind of makes sense seeing how many movies he's making of late, which I'm not going to stop anyone from making movies, but at least make them well. And so, yeah, I just think Kinds of Kindness did not need to get made. There was nothing about that story that needed to be said. I think it's been said before in other different ways, in like a lot of body horror, kind of creepy, psychological horror ways. And putting them together in like 3 forms or having it in 3 to 4 different acts with the same actors as different characters can be kind of interesting. The commentary on horror, it just didn't feel like that. And I watched it with 4 other people. 2 people left halfway through, and the 2 of us who stayed till the end went outside and trauma bonded.
Honestly, a very similar experience. I watched it with my brother. He thinks this is the worst film that he's ever watched. So do not watch this with other people, especially even if you like it. I don't think a lot of people will. Okay, I'm moving on to a film on my list, which also represents, again, Hollywood trying to just copy paste a formula and trying to make a movie out of it, which is Borderlands. this was the lowest rated film on my list, not because it was specifically bad in any way. It was a nothing film in general. It's an adaptation of the Borderlands game. I've never played those games, but I still know that the characters are not adapted well. And it just feels like a film that's made 8 years too late. Feels like a film made in the earlier times where everything needed to be witty. And I know that's like the Borderland formula necessarily, but it just doesn't do anything good with it. The jokes are just annoying more of the times. It doesn't do the cool bits with the guns that games have that make them really interesting. It does not feel like it's the best cast film either, honestly. And it just looks generic. Its plot is generic. It just feels like a film that nobody put any effort in and was again just a haphazard way of making a movie. And you can tell that no one wanted to make this film based on like one of the writers, Joe Abercrombie, who's not a real person, but instead is just a pseudonym someone has used because they did not want to be associated with this film. So just imagine a generic action adventure film and Borderlands is what you'll conjure.
Fair enough. My second one is this Cameroonian film I watched called Code Affair. And the premise is great. It's about deconstructing homophobia in Cameroonian society through the lens of this director who was formerly homophobic and wants to deconstruct his own homophobia and build like a more nuanced perspective of homosexuality. It just does not come through in the film.
Oh, no.
I just read like a review someone wrote on Letterboxd, and it's like the documentary is interesting because the director approaches every single person he interviews with the basic simple question of but why. And at some point, I feel like you need to stop going, but why? Don't ask a gay person why they left or were estranged from their family. Do you know what I mean? It's like you want to understand, sure, but there are certain things that you don't need to understand, especially if you are, like the director, a straight man. That's all I have to say about it.
I understand. It's someone trying to do ethnography who just does not understand the subject they are documenting at all.
I mean, it did not come through as that to me. I mean, the director was even there for the screening I was watching, and I was like, okay, maybe he'll redeem himself in like the way that he's speaking about this film. He did not. So I gave the film 1 star only because of, the premise.
Fair. Okay, and to finish off my list, I'm going to talk about a superhero film, which is Madam Web. Sony has been on an incredible streak of making bad films about characters related to Spider-Man, and Madam Web was definitely one of them. I still haven't watched Kraven the Hunter, but oh my god, was Madam Web bad. It was so bad that there are points of it which are funny and become so bad that they're good. And specifically, I want to talk about how bad this film is because of the incredibly bad editing and ADR. Like, never have I seen a professionally big studio made film with editing and ADR so bad that any random person can tell you that, yeah, that was probably added in post. Someone who doesn't know what ADR is can tell you, yeah, they just recorded that dialogue later into it. You can see his mouth not moving and sounds coming out. How did that pass editing, man? It's incredibly bad. If Spider-Man is swinging, his voice should not be coming like he's standing still and talking in a room. His voice should feel like this. It's like they just found a random person and was just like stitch this movie together, because that is what it does feel like. It feels like a film stitched together because 50 different notes came in from the studios much later and they did like I don't know how many reshoots. Nando V Movies has a great video on what this film originally was supposed to be and how it got restitched together, like doing a critical analysis of it. Yeah, if you want to know how not to do editing, Madam Web is an incredible film to study.
I mean, that's a very, very fair reason to hate something. And I'm going to finish off with this film called All of You. Not that popular. I watched it at like London Film Festival. I think it premiered there and released there as well. It's a rom-com and it has this great premise of a world where you take a few tests that'll match you with your soulmate, whoever that is. And it's about these two characters who've been friends for a really long time. And you can see where this is going. One of them takes the soulmate test. The other person does not end up being her soulmate. The other person is against the soulmate test. She gets married to the soulmate, but then they have a torrid affair. And they decide to end it because it's too difficult. But then they never talk about the soulmate test thing again. And I was just like, oh, you built up a wonderful idea, a nice post-human twist to a rom-com, and then just never did anything with it. And that pissed me off really, really deeply, because the rest of the film was just, like you've been saying, a generic rom-com slash generic like romance drama film that just crap then at that point, I'm sorry to say. But yeah, it was immense letdown. I was very excited at the start. I was like, ooh, this can be something fun. It's set in London. We can get to see London in like a AIE world. But no. And as someone who absolutely loves rom-coms and would watch any rom-com, even like the shittiest ones, this one I will not watch again, and I would not recommend people watch it either.
Yikes. Fair enough. Okay. So with that, those were our top best and worst. We also want to do 2 shout outs each for films for any reason that we might not have made our list, but we still think people should watch. And I actually have 3 because I just could not make up my mind. For the first 2, very quickly, because most people have already watched those films and I don't need to reintroduce them to people. Inside Out 2, incredibly well-made movie. It's a really good sequel. Pixar did an incredible job. Anxiety is so well portrayed in this film. This film fires on all cylinders. I wish they still made Riley queer. I think that was supposed to be intended, but I'm fine with it. And I think just incredible movie, really works on all cylinders and lives up to the original. And also Dune Part 2, incredible sequel to the original one. The soundtrack is amazing. Denis Villeneuve's direction is phenomenal. This film captures the themes of the book so well. I think it also makes some tweaks which actually elevate the story as well with Shawnee's character. I think the acting's really well done. I think the action is incredible. The sandworm riding scene is incredible. If you love the books, you'll absolutely love this, and it'll make you actually want to read the books. Although take your time reading the books. They can be dense, but again, incredible whale films.
I'm just going to shout out one film, and it's going to be Lapata Ladies. It is this amazing film directed by Kiran Rao. It's on Netflix, and it's one of the best Hindi Bollywood films I have watched ever, in fact. And recently out of the Oscars shortlist race, which was very disappointing. Yeah, I think it's just very, very well made, very, very nuanced, and not something you get to see in Bollywood very often.
Oh yeah, I also watched it. Incredibly well filmed. I feel every single dialogue and scene in that film furthers the plot in a very meaningful way. It's honestly one of the best of Indian cinema, and I think people should definitely take a look at it.
Very easy to watch on Netflix.
Awesome. And the last film I want to shout out is perhaps, again, one of the worst films I watched on this list, even though it did not make my list, and that is Megalopolis. And the reason I think people should still watch this film is because of it's so bad that it's genuinely incredible to watch. This film is the Room levels of like bad that it's so good. And with the Room, you understand Tommy was a nobody who had these ideas of wanting to make this great film. On the other hand, Megalopolis is directed by arguably one of the best directors of all time, Francis Ford Coppola. It has cast of Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, Shia LaBeouf, Aubrey Plaza, Lawrence Fishburne. And this film is so bad that it's just incredible to watch a misfire on so many levels. The acting is bad from actors that are Academy Award nominated. The direction is incredibly bad. The writing feels all over the place. The editing sometimes does not make sense. The CGI and just like the set and everything sometimes is kind of good, but sometimes it's just so garbly that you do not understand at all what's happening. It's massively miscommunicated. This film genuinely feels like someone who does not know anything about sci-fi fantasy trying to make a grand sci-fi fantasy film. It reeks of grandeur without the ability to execute it. There is no reason that this film could not be good, and yet it is still so bad that I think it's incredible to watch. It really makes you search the depths of Adam Driver's Amazonian mind.
I think I read somewhere that this film was made to piss everyone off. Like, I don't think there was a single person it was meant to please. And the only way it ended up pleasing people was by being so bad, which is exactly what you're saying. So, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I walked out and I was like, I can't hate this film because I enjoyed it still, even though I don't think I enjoyed it in the way it was intended.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wraps up our list on movies in 2024, what we loved, what we hated, what we think you should still watch. Come back next week. We're going to do a list of films we are excited for the next year. Thank you for listening. This podcast was produced solely by us, musical assets from Pixabay. Tune in again next time.